Chapter 2. A Million Men Marched. A person completely wrapped up in himself makes a very small package. Denzel Washington. I have often wondered what men talk about when they get together. I suspected that they talk about sports. They probably talk about work. I really believe they talk about women, what they want from us, do to us, think about us. But what do they talk about when there are a million of them who don't know each other? It never crossed my mind that they would talk about what they have done and no longer want to do. I never imagined they would explore the topics of fatherhood, husbandhood, manhood, and selfhood. My mama never told me that men talk like that. I never heard my daddy talk about anything like that. Surely it was unimaginable that 1 million black men could come together to talk about righting themselves, getting closer to God, or being better men for the sake of the women and children. When I heard they were getting together, I wondered, what the hell are they going to talk about? I watched them gather. It was a beautiful thing to see. I watched them laugh. From where I stood, it appeared as if they felt totally free to laugh, to just be happy for the first time in a long time. I watched those who were a little late running to catch up with the others. Some wore baseball caps backwards. Many ran in groups. But for the first time in a long time, no one was suspicious when they ran by. No one wondered what they were up to or what they were running away from. In fact, as I saw it, they were running to each other to embrace. Some of them were running to cry, to heal, to atone. It was a beautiful thing to watch and to cry for. 1 million black men gathering. I really don't care how many were there or not there. I cried because so many showed up. Perhaps I had fewer reservations than some of my sisters because I was very conscious of the language they used to promote the march. Atonement is not the language used when malice or deception is intended. This could have called it a day of strength or a day of pride. They could have called it a day of strength or a day of pride. They did not. Atonement is a spiritual concept indicating a conscious attempt and intent to seek redemption. They spoke about forgiveness. Forgiveness appeals to the heart, not the ego. Many black women have had their hearts broken or abused, and their egos damaged by black men. Many of us have not forgiven them for it. In many instances, our egos are not ready to forgive. What really caught my ear was healing. Healing is a term I rarely hear my brothers or lovers use. To hear them use that term was shocking. To ask for healing indicates that one recognizes that something is wrong. Most men I know are not willing to admit that anything is wrong with them. Perhaps it's easier for me to accept that the men needed to march, to gather, because I know in my own life that God has used the most unusual situations to create extraordinary results. The results remain to be seen, but I know God has a plan. I saw my father out there on that mall, although he'd been dead for 11 years. I saw my former husband out there. He too had been on the other side for quite some time. My brother was there. My son was there. In fact, all the men in my life I have ever told, do something, just do something, were out there. Whether or not they were present, I saw them making an effort, taking a step to do something for themselves. It made me proud. It made me humble. It scared me half to death. The gathering of 1 million black men helped me realize how long I have been the man in my life. I have been doing all the things I wanted a man to do for me and with me. While doing is not an activity exclusively reserved for men, women have been doing their part and the man's part for so long, we leave little room for them to show up in our lives. That I had been asked to stay home and not do was frightening. Excuse me. It created conflict in my brain. My personal affirmation, "Can't no man tell me what to do," pounded in my mind. How dare they, was my next thought. But then I remembered the language, atone, and became one with the concept. Unite with the God self in myself, and with all the men who would gather. Forgive. Give up judgment. Release fears, anger, resentment to make way for a change. Heal. Allow the pain, the infection to come and to make way for a change. Let me read that again. Unite with God. Unite with the God self in myself and with all the men who would gather. Forgive. Give up judgment. Release fears, anger, resentment to make way for a change. Heal. Allow the pain, the infection to come to the surface in order to be restored to a state of wholeness and goodness. All of it defied my intellect. Good. That meant that spirit was in charge and I was not. There was a mysterious kind of peace in the air. I was more than 15 miles away from the march site, but I could feel the peace. I watched them gather and I cried. Crying cleanses the spirit. It releases the poisonous toxins that build up in the heart and mind. I listened to them and was proud. It felt good to be proud of my father, brother, husband, son, grandson, and the hard hat-wearing brothers who sometimes whistle at me. I cooked for them and waited for them to come home. My mate, my son-in-law and his cousins and their friends, my longtime childhood friends and their children. My home was a way station. I waited for my 4-year-old grandson to come home and share his experiences. I was excited. It was not the fact that they had gathered that gave me hope. It was the process they were given that excited me. Life is a process. Within that process are principles and guidelines with which one must be aligned. Principles woven into a plan of action ultimately produce an evolutionary framework. I'm not familiar with any process, principles, or guidelines to which black men have collectively been exposed. Sure, you all get the golden rule, table manners, and personal hygiene hints at home, but where the black community is, there is But where in the black community, is there a process, plan, or principles to which we are exposed en masse and encouraged to employ for our collective well-being? I remember when my father was arrested for running numbers. When the police handcuffed him and escorted him away, he stood alone. He looked frightened. His eyes were downcast. His head hung shamefully as all the neighbors who had placed bets with him peered through their curtains. When his buddies paid his bail and brought him home, he was alive again. He held his head high. His eyes were bright. The shame dissolved. There really is strength in numbers. I often talk about the many brothers I knew who were members of the Nation of Islam. When they were in the nation, they were sharp. They wore those impeccably pressed suits, sold those papers and pies, and drew their strength from the brigade of brothers and sisters who stood behind them, seen and unseen. While the Honorable Elijah Muhammad passed, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad passed, the nation separated. Many of the brothers were lost. In the group, it was easy to stay in step. When the group spirit and energy disbanded, the brothers forgot the principles. Theirs was a group process. Without the group, the individuals seemed unprepared and unsure. They became unstable. They reverted to what they had known before the nation. Some, including my husband and brother-in-law, went back to drugs, crime, and the streets. I do not mean to suggest that the principles or the process taught by the nation was faulty or that it did not fill a desperate need in the black community. I am, however, suggesting that it is crucial that every member of the group be empowered and enabled to practice every principle of the process in the absence of the group. For many brothers in the nation, that didn't happen. The process of atonement was the beauty of the march. Every individual present was given a tidy little package of mental notes to take home and work on. The group was not in existence long enough to make anyone dependent. The group generated individual responsibility. No longer can black men say, "We don't know what to do to help ourselves." They are no longer held to foreign standards given to them by the oppressor. Black women cannot claim not to know what to tell their sons in the absence of their fathers. Black boys no longer need to be confused about where to begin and what to do as they approach manhood. The Day of Atonement produced a process. If that process is employed in your individual and our collective lives, it will bring us to a state of oneness, rightness, abundance, and godness. The fact that the process came through a black man is wonderful. The fact that it is grounded in spiritual principles is evolutionary. The process begin within. The inherent nature of men is to direct activity and energy outward. A man is the physical embodiment of the masculine nature and energy in the universe of life, symbolized by a circle and an arrow pointing upwards. Man represents the physical world, the conscious mind, the will, and the intellect. The nature of masculine energy represented as man is to initiate thought. The masculine energy preserves and rules logical sequences through thought, desire, command, and control. It is an aggressive energy, inclined to reach beyond itself. The basic nature of men is to engage in thought and to turn that thought into action in the outer realm, the world. In this outer physical realm, the masculine nature also governs choice. The ability to choose is a function of thought. In the physical world, most choice is based on knowledge gleaned from that which can be seen, heard, touched, and perceived by the mind. Masculine nature represents the principle of God as the Father, God as the cause, idea, order, justice, strength, and structure in the world. The purpose of masculine energy, the mind, man, is to give outwardly, to build, to protect. The inherent nature of the woman is to direct energy and activity inward, symbolized by the circle on top of the cross. A woman represents the inner or spiritual world, the subconscious mind, and the heart. The nature of feminine energy, represented as woman, is to receive energy, create from the energy received, and nurture. Feminine energy is the ability to be soft and flexible in order to receive. It represents the ability to feel, which is directly linked to the subconscious mind. It is the subconscious mind that attracts, receives, and expresses or responds to external stimuli. The feminine nature is subjective, in that it creates within rather than seeking to protect itself into the outer realm. I'm going to read that line again. The feminine nature is subjective, in that it creates within rather than seeking to project itself into the outer realm. Feminine energy is inclined to reach within itself and affirm itself from an inner sense of knowing and being. Feminine energy represents the heart, the ability to feel and to express that feeling by creating an environment of energy, of warmth, and nurturing within itself. It is the feminine nature and energy that gives rise to belief. Feminine energy is the darkness of the inner realm that cannot be seen, touched, or felt. Feminine energy is the darkness of the inner realm that cannot be seen, touched, or felt. It represents the principle of God as the mother, God as the medium of expression, the mystery of unseen power, the mercy, benevolence, and grace of God expressed in the physical form. The purpose of feminine energy is to receive, create, express, and nurture. When we understand the inherent differences in the natures of men and women, we can understand the differences in our behaviors and the abilities to grasp certain information. Men reach outward. They think. They follow a logical sequence to a structured conclusion based on what is perceived by the physical senses. Women reach inward. They feel. They will respond to inner stimulation and may respond in ways that seem illogical. Men focus on the structure, the external representation. Women tend to focus on the process, the internal creation. The thought process of the man is an outgrowth of the intellect. The thought process of the woman is based on emotion. This is in no way a hard and fast rule. There are men who are extremely emotional, just as there are women who are extremely intellectual. However, both men and women carry the energy of an inherent nature, which is fostered in the way we are socialized. I'm going to repeat that again. There are men who are extremely emotional, just as there are women who are extremely intellectual. However, both men and women carry the energy of an inherent nature, which is fostered in the way we are socialized. My publicist recently had an experience that demonstrates inherent nature. She's a single mom. After a recent snowstorm, she and her 5-year-old daughter, India, went sledding. They took a cardboard box. They got to the top of the hill. When they got to the top of the hill, they discovered that the slope was too steep and the box was too weak. Little boys, ranging in age from about 8 to 10, were building a fortress on the hill. They informed my friend that they were building the fortress because they were going to have a snowball war. They invited my friend and her daughter to help them. They declined. It was then that my friend discovered the sled. She asked the little boys if she could borrow the sled while they were doing their construction work. They said sure. My friend also borrowed a broom from a nearby house so that she could use it to propel the sled down the hill. After a few trips up and down the hill, she and India stopped for much needed rest. Once again, the little boys invited them to help build the fortress and join the war. My friend was out of breath, and her India was not interested. The little boys were persistent. They explained that the other boys had more help than they did, so they really needed my friend's input. They explained how much fun they would have and how they were going to win. After a few minutes of haggling, India decided to help. She walked over to the half-built fortress and started sweeping the snow. There were many footprints from the little boys walking back and forth. India swept them until they were level. The little boys welcomed her help because, while sweeping, India would find big balls of snow the boys could use for the fortress. When they stepped on the places India had already swept, she would fuss at them. Obediently, they would walk the other way. My friend watched in total amazement. The boys were excitedly preparing for war. India was content to sweep. They were acting out their natural instincts. India has already told us she wants to be a doctor when she grows up. We are excited about that, but we hope that she will also hold on to the broom. Society demands that a woman know how to do more than one thing at a time. The inner or spiritual process of life is designed to foster the ability to strike a balance between the masculine and feminine natures that exist in everyone. You must learn to bring your head and heart into balance, your thoughts and emotions into one accord. Socialization often makes this difficult for men. Socialization often makes this difficult for men. Women are expected to feel and cry. Men are supposed to be strong and detached. Consequently, certain behaviors, ideas, and practices are labeled manly, while others considered feminine. The spiritual transformation process is an internal process regardless of the gender of the person involved. If you want to transform your life, you must be willing to explore the depths of your inner soul. If you want to transform your life, you must be willing to explore the depths of your inner self. It is often easier for women to engage in spiritual practices because of their inherent ability to feel the inner stirring. This in no way implies that men do not have the ability or cannot experience the same. It is to say that men must reach, stretch, move into a realm that may be unfamiliar or uncomfortable as a result of your socialization. Change, however, is an inside job. Any lasting or meaningful change in your life must begin with your heart and mind. On the quest of spiritual transformation, it seems that men are required to work a little harder. Your work involves a readiness and willingness to reach within, experience the depth of your emotion, respond to that emotion, and create in response to what you feel. Your work involves a readiness and willingness to reach within, experience the depth of your emotion, respond to that emotion, and create in response to what you feel. You must be willing to seek your direction, guidance, answers, and truth from within you. You must know what is going on inside you and be willing to clean it out. The bad news is, it is often dark in there. Most of us are afraid of the dark, afraid of what we cannot see but may feel around us. The good news is, power is born in the darkness. You cannot see what is going on. At times, you will be able to feel it, but you will not always know what it is. The key to making it through the darkness is belief and trust. Believe that something good will come out of the darkness and trust that it will. I say, well, that was a reading from The Spirit of a Man, A Vision of Transformation for Black Men and the Women Who Love Them by IyaNLA VANZANT. So I want to thank you all for allowing me to bring you these words, and I'll continue this reading tomorrow. I appreciate your willingness to allow me to share these words with you, this wisdom with you. And thanks for subscribing to the channel. Thanks for giving us some likes, some thumbs up. I appreciate it. And don't forget to share these messages with other brothers and sisters. Thank you so much. Until tomorrow, namaste, ashe, amen, and peace.